If a man suddenly becomes distant, his gaze turning cold, like a door slammed shut against a storm, could it be that you've unwittingly touched a deep, hidden wound, one he himself dares not confront? Deep within every man's soul lies a shadow, a repository of painful memories and buried fears, which Carl Jung called the shadow, the unconscious part harboring fragments of the self he refuses to acknowledge. When you enter a man's world, you don't merely brush against the surface of his words and actions. You touch the deeper layers of his soul, where his most profound psychological wounds lurk, waiting for a moment to erupt, drawing on the profound insights of Jung and Freud. This journey explores 5 signs that you've unintentionally, or perhaps intentionally, triggered those wounds, awakening the demons within him, and perhaps within yourself as well. Picture a man standing before you, his smile a finely crafted mask, but behind it rages an uncontrollable storm of emotions. The first sign, often overlooked, is an unusual silence, wordless retreat into his inner fortress. Jung taught that the shadow is not just a haven for wounds, but also a vault for the parts of himself society has forced him to suppress. Vulnerability, fear of rejection, or the longing to be genuinely loved. When you inadvertently touch something, a sharp word, a fleeting glance, or even a moment when you fail to meet his expectations, his shadow awakens. He grows quiet, not out of anger, but because he's battling an invisible enemy within. Freud would call this the ego's defense, a mechanism to shield his fragile self-esteem from collapse. Have you ever noticed him avoiding your gaze, as if looking at you would force him to face himself? This silence is not empty. It's an ocean brimming with unexpressed emotions. When a man withdraws, he's not just pulling away from you, but from himself. In Jung's psychology, this is the moment when individuation, the process of integrating the shadow into consciousness, is disrupted. He fears that if he speaks, what spills out will be a truth he can't bear, that he's not good enough, that he's failed to become the ideal society, or even you expects. Ask yourself, when you question his silence, do you truly want the answer, or are you just trying to fill the void? The truth is, when you trigger his deepest wound, you're also confronting your own shadow, your fear of abandonment or the worry that you're not enough to make him stay. But don't mistake this silence for indifference. Within his soul, a battle rages. According to Marcus Aurelius' Stoic philosophy, men are taught that emotions must be controlled, that weakness is shameful. So, when his wound is touched, he builds a wall not to push you away, but to keep himself from crumbling. Yet this wall is never as sturdy as he hopes. It cracks under the pressure of suppressed emotions, and the second sign emerges, sudden. Emotional outbursts, often disproportionate to the situation. A careless remark from you might provoke a harsh reaction, as if you've plunged a knife into the heart of his wound. Freud called this projection. He's not just angry at you, but at himself, at the parts of himself he can't accept. You ever felt attacked by his sharp words and wondered why they cut so deeply? It's because in that moment, he's not only fighting you, but the demons he's buried deep in his unconscious. These emotional storms erupting from a man are not random flames, but molten lava spilling from a volcano long dormant. When his deepest wound is touched, Freud's projection isn't just a reaction, it's a cry for help from the depths of his unconscious, where Jung's shadow lurks, clutching the shattered pieces of his wounded self-esteem. The second sign, the sudden emotional outburst, is not merely a moment of anger. It's a glimpse into the inner world he's tried to lock away. A small criticism from you, a seemingly harmless question, can make him react as if the entire world is against him. But this isn't really about you. Those sharp words, those furious glares, reflect an internal battle, one he's been fighting long before you entered his life. Ask yourself, when he erupts, are you truly hearing him, or are you only hearing the echo of your own pain? In Jung's psychology, these outbursts are the shadow straining to break free. The shadow doesn't just hold wounds. It contains the parts of him society deems unacceptable. Fragility, fear of judgment, or the desire to be seen without having to prove himself. When you inadvertently or perhaps deliberately touch a sensitive spot, like questioning his worth or comparing him to an ideal, you trigger a buried memory, a wound from childhood, or a past relationship. Freud would say he's transferring old emotions onto you, turning you into a mirror for the failures he dares not face. Have you ever noticed that when he criticizes you, his words seem to target not just you, but a shadow from his past? The third sign emerges when the man shifts from outbursts to excessive control, a desperate attempt to regain power over his chaotic inner world. According to Seneca's Stoic philosophy, men are taught that self-control is the pinnacle of strength, that showing weakness is a loss of essence. So when his wound is triggered, he may become rigid, controlling everything around him from how you speak to how you express emotions or even how you spend your time. This isn't ordinary dominance. It's a defense mechanism, a way to mask his fear that he's not good enough, that if he lets go, everything will collapse. But beneath this control lies a quiet desperation. He's not truly trying to control you. He's trying to control his own shadow, which always slips beyond his grasp. Picture him as a warrior on a battlefield, weapon in hand, but the enemy is himself. In this moment, Jung would say he's resisting individuation, the journey to integrate the shadow with the ego to become whole. Instead, he builds a fortress around his heart, each brick a self-criticism, each layer of mortar a fear of rejection. Have you ever felt suffocated by his control, as if you're bound not just by his actions but by the wounds he refuses to acknowledge? But beware. Resisting his control might deepen his wound, pushing him further into a cycle of defense and distance. Freud would warn that this is when the masculine and feminine unconscious sun's anima and animus clash, creating a silent battle between your expectations and his fears. In the whirlwind of control, a man isn't just trying to restrain the outside world. He's struggling to hold together the fragments of himself. But as Jung pointed out, the shadow cannot be confined forever. It lurks, waiting for the moment. His fortress falters, and then the fourth sign appears: subtle self-destruction. Behavior that seems harmless at first, but is the silent cry of a soul unraveling. He might throw himself into work until exhaustion, neglect his health, or turn to harmful habits, to many drinks, sleepless nights, or impulsive decisions that seem out of character. This isn't mere carelessness. It's his unconscious punishing himself for wounds he cannot face. Freud would call this a conflict between the life instinct and the death instinct, where one part of him longs to heal, but another seeks to drown in darkness. Imagine him as a ship lost at sea, searching for a harbor but caught in the waves of his own making. This self-destruction is often disguised with rational excuses. He says he's working for a better future, that he's just unwinding after a long day. But look closely and you'll see his eyes are empty, as if he's fleeing something he can't name, according to Epictetus' Stoic philosophy. A person can only control what's within their reach, thoughts, actions, and responses to the world. But when his deepest wound is triggered, he loses this control, letting the shadow take the helm, turning him into a prisoner of his own fears. Have you ever noticed him rejecting your help, as if accepting it would force him to admit he's breaking? This self-destruction isn't just inward. It's a silent declaration that he's unworthy of love or acceptance from you, from the world, or from himself. In Jung's psychology, this is when the anima, the feminine aspect of his soul, becomes distorted, making him doubt his ability to connect or be loved. He may push you away, not because he doesn't want you to stay, but because he fears that if you get too close, you'll see the scars he's hidden his entire life. Ask yourself, when you try to pull him from the abyss, are you fighting him or your own fear that you're not strong enough to save him? And then, as self-destruction peaks, the fifth sign emerges: complete emotional detachment, as if he's severed every tie to you and himself. This isn't just the silence of the first sign. It's a profound void, an absence of the person you once knew. He may still be there, talking, laughing, but his eyes lack warmth. Jung would say this is the moment he's fully surrendered to the shadow, abandoning individuation and choosing to live in disconnection from himself. Freud would describe it as a retreat into the unconscious, where he seeks safety by forsaking all emotion, because feeling means pain. Ever felt like you're talking to a stranger even though he's sitting right in front of you? That's because in that moment, he's no longer himself, he's a shadow, a ghost of what he ain't once aspired to be. Emotional detachment, like a thick fog enveloping the soul, is not just the final sign of a triggered wound, but the moment a man becomes a stranger in his own body. In this silence, he doesn't just cut ties with you, but with the deepest parts of his being. Jung would call this a failure of individuation, where he refuses to integrate the shadow and chooses to hide in a wasteland of the unconscious, where emotions are stifled to avoid pain. But what is the cost of this escape? Life? That's no longer lived, only endured, a faded painting of a man who once burned with hope and desire. Picture him as an abandoned house, windows shuttered. No light seeping through, yet inside, whispers of the past echo, demanding to be heard. Freud would argue that this detachment is a form of regression, a final defense mechanism when the ego can no longer bear the pressure of inner conflicts. He's no longer fighting his shadow. He's become it, living in a world where emotions are buried under layers of icy self-protection. But beneath this coldness lies a painful truth. He doesn't truly want to be distant from you. This detachment is a silent plea, a hope that you'll see through the wall, that you'll have the courage to step into his darkness and pull him back to the light. Have you ever felt the emptiness of trying to reach him, like grasping at air, only to realize you're searching for a version of him hidden by pain? Marcus Aurelius' Stoic philosophy. We're reminded that suffering lies not in what happens, but in how one responds to it. But when a man's deepest wound is triggered, he loses the ability to choose his response. He becomes a prisoner of his memories and fears, trapped in a cycle of self-destruction and detachment. Yet in this darkness, there's still a glimmer of light, a chance for healing, not just for him, but for you. Jung emphasized that the shadow isn't an enemy. It's a part of the self, a treasure trove of lessons and strength if faced with courage. When you witness his detachment, ask yourself, are you seeing him through a lens of judgment, or can you open your heart to understand that his pain is also an invitation to confront your own? This journey isn't just about recognizing the signs of his wounds, but about understanding how you respond to them. You see him grow silent, erupt, control, self-destruct, and finally detach. You may feel hurt, rejected, or even blamed. But pause for a moment. Your reactions are also a mirror reflecting your own shadow. Freud would say you're projecting your fears onto him, fear of abandonment, of being misunderstood, or of not being enough. And at this moment, both of you stand on the edge of transformation. Do you dare step into your own darkness, confronting the fears you've buried, to find a path to shared healing? The darkness of the shadow isn't a place to fear, but a gateway to rebirth, if both of you dare to cross it. When a man falls into emotional detachment, when his gaze becomes an impenetrable void, it's not the end, but a profound invitation to confront your wounds together. Jung taught that individuation isn't just one person's journey, but a dance between souls, where each reflects and fosters the other's growth. As you watch him sink into darkness, you're not just seeing his pain, but a mirror reflecting your own hidden corners. Ask yourself, are you fleeing your own shadow, or are you ready to step into it, carrying the light of understanding and compassion? Healing begins with recognizing that his wound, silence, outbursts, control, self-destruction, and detachment aren't accusations against you, but echoes of a past he hasn't learned to face. Freud would say his unconscious is retelling an old story, one of rejection, failure, or inadequacy he internalized long ago. But you're not the author of that story, nor the villain in it. Instead, you're a companion, one who can choose to hold the flame of connection, even when he tries to extinguish it. According to Seneca's Stoic philosophy, you can only control your response, not his actions. So, when you stand before his detachment, what will you choose? Resentment or patience? Judgment or understanding? This journey demands rare courage, not just from him, but from you. Jung emphasized that the shadow isn't something to banish, but to embrace, to integrate into the self, to become whole. When you see him wrestling with his inner demons, remember that you carry demons of your own, or that your love isn't strong enough to pull him from the dark. Perhaps you're projecting your insecurities onto him, just as he projects his pain onto you. But in this clash of shadows lies a chance for both of you to find freedom, freedom from dependence on external validation, freedom from the old stories that have held you both captive, Imagine a moment when you choose to step through his wall. Not by demanding he change, but by being present, by showing him you see both his light and his darkness. This is the power of Jung's anima and animus, the connection between the masculine and feminine within the soul, where love becomes a healing force. You don't need to fix him or save him. Sometimes healing begins simply by staying, by witnessing his pain without running away. And in that act, you're also healing yourself, learning to love without needing perfection, learning to stand firm amidst the storms of the soul. Ultimately, this journey leads both of you to a new precipice, one of destruction but of rebirth, as you learn to see through the signs of his wounds, silence, outbursts, control, self-destruction. Detachment, you'll realize they're not an end, but invitations to grow. He may choose to face his shadow, and you may choose to face yours. Together, you can find a place where love is no longer a battle, but a home, where scars are honored as marks of courage. A soul, freed from the chains of fear, finds peace that doesn't depend on the world's approval.